Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez.
And I'm Nicole Bolas-Burdick.
And we're so glad you're here because it's coffee time. That's the stuff. This is Cards and Coffee, the laid-back, awesome, casual, chatty talk show between your two favorite Magic personalities. We got the mustache, we got the braids, we got some great topics here to discuss. Today, we love making these episodes. This is number 4, I believe. And they're so much fun. We just get to hang out and chat about cool stuff. We love getting the comments and the feedback from everybody. This has been such a great experience making these shows, but we couldn't do it without our sponsor, Many Worlds Tavern, who supplies the coffee that's in these cups here. And if you haven't heard about these guys, they are fantastic. They are an online-only retailer that specializes in coffee for game night, really. All of their blends, brews, how do you refer to coffee? Brews. All of their brews have like a gaming theme to them or a flavor. They've got Dragon's Nest and Homely House. I got Homely House today. It's been a little rainy and kind of gross out, so I wanted just a nice calming, lighter kind of blend. Really cool stuff. Every time you buy a bag of coffee from them, whether it's whole beans or grounds or whatever works for you, a portion of that purchase also supports a gaming-related charity. They give money away to help people enjoy gaming and to help people who are less fortunate. And that is something everybody can get behind, especially we're getting close to the holiday season here. It's time to start thinking about gifts. Even if you don't drink coffee yourself, I had somebody tag me on Twitter this week who said that they were really excited, fan of the show. They don't drink coffee, but their partner does. And they were so excited to show it off on Twitter. Like, look, it's an early present. I'm like, okay, it'll keep. I mean, you can store that, keep it in a cool, dark place, but you can hide that for now, and then boom, Christmas morning or whatever, it shows up under the tree, and then you get to enjoy that. And that's making memories, man. That's like good times. That's good stuff. If someone's going to show up at game night with the pizza and the whatever, the cookies, be the person who shows up with coffee from Many Worlds Tavern. And you're going to make sure that game night just goes all night, right? Because it's on brand. It is fun and thematic, and I mean, we can't get enough of it. We just drink it by the mug here, by the Arcanum mug.
It definitely adds to any of your roles for enthusiasm for the night. I mean, you rip out coffee. Good. Obviously, you're going to be the one enthusiastic to keep going, even if you're the only one drinking it. Somebody is going to be playing games.
Yeah, it's +5 for your charisma too if you walk in with some of this stuff for D&D night, whatever.
I would be one
of you would be one of the first 100 people to check out Many Worlds Tavern using our link in the description. You'll save 10% on your entire order. Let me get that out. While also supporting those gaming related charities. So everybody wins. You support the show, you support a local business. Starbucks doesn't need your money. Dunkin' Donuts doesn't need your money. But these guys are hardworking dudes putting out a good quality product while supporting the community that we all love. So can't say enough good things about them, but we do need to move on to other topics. I don't want to, let that whole show be about coffee, although it is called Cards and Coffee. So what do I know?
But it's not coffee and coffee. It's
right. It's not coffee. We got to talk about other stuff. So before we get into the magic portion of today's discussion, we like to, diverge a little bit and talk about what games are you playing? So Nicole, what games are you playing?
As anybody would know, once you start playing Factorio, you don't stop. It's in the TOS. You have to play all day, all night.
I think that's 3 in a row now that you've been on.
It's that. 3 in a row. I don't know when it's going to stop. I highly encourage it. But while doing Factorio, I've had some playoff baseball on the screen. I mean, it does not get better than October baseball. I mean, yeah. I might be a Mets fan, but I still like October baseball, even if I'm not actively watching the Mets.
Okay. So it's a good, exciting time for baseball. I dig it. So my game lately has been Sushi Go. I just broke that out for my family to enjoy. I have a 5, almost 6-year-old daughter. She'll be 6 by the end of this month. And so she's right at that age where she's starting to get it. And if you've never seen Sushi Go before, it is a drafting game. It's just like in Magic, if you do a draft, same kind of idea. You start with a pack of cards in front of you, but they're all themed around sushi, and you're trying to build, instead of a deck, you're trying to build the best sushi meal, and certain cards have different combinations of points. If you can pick up combos together, they become worth more. things like that. So you pick a card, pass the pack, get the pack from your neighbor, pick another card, and you're kind of building out your meal. And it's all pictures. There's not really words on the cards or anything. And once you understand how, you need 2 tempura to get 5 points, and now my daughter can look for the 2 matching cards, and she's in the game, right? Like she's an actual competitor. She's a threat to my strategy because I can no longer count on that tempura wheeling around the table. She might scoop it up, and now I'm out 5 points. So it's a lot of fun. It is very popular. I mean, it's been around for a while. And you can find this one at bookstores, at Target, at like gas stations. It's so popular, and it's just everywhere. And it's probably one of those games that everyone should have available because every age can play it, and it's easy to put down and just deal it out and get a quick game in. So we've been doing that, right before dinner. When she gets home from school, we'll play a little bit before dinner gets made, and we really enjoy Sushi Go. So check that one out if you haven't already.
I definitely love those games. You can just sit down, play in 20 to 30 minutes, something like that, clean it up within 5 minutes. And next thing you know, you're going about the rest of your day. So you can just fit gaming in wherever.
Opportunity gaming, we call that, right? That's big. All right. So today, what are we talking about magic wise? Well, we wanted to make some predictions for you here. People have been asking in the comments, when are you going to do another predictions video? I did one a while ago, last year, I guess, looking forward. And so we kind of found ourselves in the position where we can make some predictions going into Magic for 2022. Now, these are all going to be based on information that was revealed during the Magic Showcase for 2021, which happened back in August. So we've had some time to kind of digest that. I will have a link to it. It was a live stream. I watched the whole thing live because I have no life outside of this. But you can still watch it as a rerun on YouTube now. During our discussion, I'll probably refer to it as the live stream, but if you didn't see it live, whatever. They announced a lot of stuff in that stream. The things that we're going to focus on, though, are the 4 major set releases that are going to be part of Standard, because those are the ones that are going to connect to the story, and those are the ones that we can make predictions for. There's going to be other stuff, like another, what is it, Nicole? Another Modern Horizons or something in there?
Double Masters. We've got an Unset coming. All the classics are coming back.
All that other stuff is really, really cool, but it's a lot harder to guess what's going to happen there because it's just kind of whatever they want to put out for a set. So I'm not going to monkey with those too much, but we are going to look at the 4 standard sets that we were told about, starting with in Q1 of 2022, we're going to see Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Okay, so this is a revisit to the plane of Kamigawa, and if you're newer to Magic, maybe this has gotten by you. Kamigawa has a bit of a, man, how do I phrase this in a way that doesn't ignite the comments down below? It's a tricky one, all right? It's a Japanese-inspired plane, but it touches on parts of Japanese culture that maybe a lot of people outside of Japan don't know. So your expectations for that set didn't quite match what you're thinking you're going to see certain things, and it's mostly like spirits fighting like this spirit war with foxes and rat people, and you're like, that's not. Where's the Gundams? Where's Godzilla? Like not the same thing. So it just didn't quite line up. This time we're going back to the plane. It's like 2,000 years later, I think they said. And now we are in this sort of neon dynasty where it's all cyberpunk, and they described it as having like steampunk samurai and neon ninjas. And so it's kind of more what you might have expected from a trip to a Japanese-inspired plane to begin with. So I think that's going to make a lot of people more happy. This was probably going to sell a lot better than the old Kamigawa did, which, again, there was other things at play there. It was just not a well-loved set. The mechanics were not great. The setting was confusing. A whole lot of things went wrong there that they are trying to fix. I'm getting way off of base. In the new set, in Neon Dynasty, we know there's at least one new Planeswalker. They showed us a preview of Kaito, who seems to have like a little pet raccoon balanced on his shoulder there, which is kind of cool. Maybe it's like a familiar or something like that. They also told us that on this plane, the current emperor is, quote, someone familiar. And they just kind of left it at that. So this is where we get to make our predictions, right? So I went through the list of, well, not every known Planeswalker, because I only have so many hours in the day, but the ones who are relevant enough that I would say that they are familiar, and I would not be shocked to see them show up here on Kamigawa now as the emperor. So here's my short list of who this emperor could be. It could be Tamio. We know that she's from Kamigawa, but I don't know that she stays in one place long enough to be an emperor. She also doesn't strike me as the authoritative type. She likes to go around and collect stories and explore. She has her story time with Ajani, and she's kind of bouncing around quite a bit. I don't think that she's going to be our emperor here. Do you agree? You're nodding your head over there, Nicole. Am I right? It's not going to be Tamio.
It's a great pick. I think the thing that's getting me is, where does Neon Dynasty fall in the timeline of everything else going on? I mean, we've got planeswalkers here, planeswalkers there, and they can go from place to place. How does the timing fit? I guess we aren't really sure where Neon Dynasty fits into the grand Magic timeline.
That's a good point. That is a good
point.
Only
know, the comparison to the last Kamigawa, but how does that relate?
You're right. They did not conclusively say that this is concurrent with modern Magic. I'm going with the assumption that it is. I'm assuming that whatever's happening there is happening the same time as Strixhaven, Kaldheim, all the other stuff. I'll say it's post-War of the Spark. Maybe there's some wiggle room in there because we know some stuff kind of slides, but I think it's post-War of the Spark. So that's my kind of roster of characters. I'm keeping it to people who we know of as of at least War of the Spark. But you're right. This could be, even though it's 2,000 years later, it could still be 4,000 years ago for us. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, working down my list here. Another contender could be Koth. This is a character that we haven't really seen since Phyrexia. His fate was unknown. He was kind of involved in the war against the Phyrexians. Elspeth had to leave him behind when she left the plane, and it wasn't clear if he lived or died or escaped or what. So he's been kind of MIA for like 10 years now. And could he show up and be running things on a whole new plane? I don't see why not. Maybe he's trying to get allies or researching weapons to bring back against the Phyrexians. Maybe something drew him to Kamigawa here. I don't know. He seems like someone who we haven't heard from in a while. And if I was going to slot him somewhere where we have someone familiar, I think he could pull off being an emperor here. It's a bit of an outsider, kind of a long shot, but that's one potential I want to make everyone aware of. We haven't seen Koth in a while. He could fit.
Cyberpunk Koth.
Cyberpunk Koth, right? Like it kind of, with like Bushido armor or something. And he's like throwing the rock. He's a geomancer. He uses like rocks and earth type powers, which kind of brings balance to the artificial nature of like the cyberpunk, and he's kind of like the down to earth dude surrounded by machines, but he's like making the ground quake under you. That's kind of like a thing.
That balances. Yeah, I'm here for it.
Option number 3, Narset. This is also kind of a stretch, but she comes from Tarkir, which is also kind of modeled around more of a Central Asia kind of a thing, but she's not so different that they'd be like outsider. Like I feel like if you're going to be the emperor of Kamigawa, you probably have to pass for being like a local almost, right? Like you're probably not going to, although some outsiders showing up and just totally kicking ass and taking names, maybe it is a position of power. Maybe they do respect that.
We've seen it happen before.
We have seen it happen before.
I don't know that I'm ready for more Narsets.
Right. So Narset's cool. Narset's also kind of connected right now to Sarkhan, and by virtue of that to Ugin. Ugin is currently busy watching over Nicol. But if he wasn't doing that, if he has a way to like step aside from that for a moment, having a spirit dragon in the world of spirits and other dragons seems like there'd be something cool there to work with. I'd like to see Ugin in a setting like Kamigawa, but I don't know if he's able to step down from guarding Nicol long enough to also be emperor randomly, at some plane there. So Narset's a maybe. The other potential that I have would be Tezaret. Tezaret could be an emperor. He's a very authoritative figure. He loves to have people worship him. He's always out for power, and he's already got kind of that cybernetic, aesthetic to him with the metallic arm, and it's made of Ethereum, I believe. So he would fit right in by looks. He would fit right in, by status. So a strong case could be made for Tezaret. But the last time we saw him in the story, he was on Ravnica scheming with Lazav to do something. So I don't know if that maybe that something is go become emperor somewhere else and funnel resources from Kamigawa back to Ravnica. I don't know. But those are my picks. I think it's going to be either Tamio, Koth, Narset, or Tezaret is going to be the emperor on Kamigawa. What do you
I
think?
think my money is somewhere between Tamio and Tezaret. Tezaret just makes so much sense in the grand scheme of things when you were looking at cyberpunk and the Neon Dynasty and ushering in, if you will, that sort of tech age.
Sure.
I know we talked about it briefly earlier. I would love to see the Wanderer come back here, if not as the Emperor, just in some capacity.
Sure.
I would like to see some of that wandering that is supposed to be happening.
Right.
And I feel like we haven't seen the character in far too long for somebody
Right.
called the Wanderer.
She was just randomly turning up in sets for a minute, and then they kind of cooled on that. So maybe she has been working on something. Okay.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see where that goes, and get everybody's tinfoil hat out and maybe agree with me and come up with some
Okay.
thoughts
All right.
about how they could fit in. So
Nicole adds the Wanderer to the list. All right. Other themes that I think they're going to kind of explore here. I don't know, storyline wise, they could go anywhere with this. But I know spirits are an important part of Kamigawa's identity. I think that will still be a major tribe supported. It's going to be in standard at the same time as Innistrad, which also has spirits and stuff. So it makes sense. You kind of want to keep the roster of supported creature types tidy. And I think having more spirits in Kamigawa makes sense. I think they're going to actually be embedded in the machines somehow, right? If you've got this technology, cyberpunk kind of glowing neon aesthetic, I think the energy for that's going to come from the spirits, kind of like how the Aetherborn and the Aether supplied Kaladesh with its kind of Aetherpunk look. I think the spirits are going to somehow be connected to the nightlife of Kamigawa. And then the big question is, will this set be connected to the Phyrexians somehow? Now, they are the big outstanding threat right now. Nicol Bolas has put away. The Eldrazi are kind of on cooldown. So I think we're building back up towards Phyrexians. We last saw one of them appear on Kaldheim, somewhat unexpectedly. And now we're reaching that point where it's going to be a year later. Could we see another Phyrexian Praetor or some evidence of infiltration or something going on here? I think so. I think this, if I was going to pick one out of the 4 sets for this coming year to be another one that connects to the Phyrexians somehow, this would probably be the one where I would see that most likely happening. What do you think about that, Nicole? Are we due for another Phyrexian appearance?
I think that puts a brilliant counterpoint to the neon sort of cyberpunkness of it, right? Like the Phyrexians are not colorful. They're not, this bright sort of thing. They're typically darker and that shadow side of it. And if not if not Neon Dynasty, I think the set that we're going to see in Q2 could be another one where they would show up on the streets.
Okay, well, let's talk about that then. So in the live stream, they told us that the Q2 set was going to be called Streets of New Kapena. So this is a brand new plane that we've not been to before. It is kind of a modern urban fantasy setting inspired by gangster films. It has this real Art Deco 1950s kind of look to it, with 5 3-colored crime families, which I believe are all run by demons. Okay, so they showed Obnixilis, who is a demon planeswalker, and it looked like he was sporting maybe like Grixis rings, like a red and a blue, and maybe like a black or like a gold and black or something. So if they're doing 3-color families, there's 5 colors of Magic. Duh, Ryan.
Shocker.
How much coffee are you drinking, Ryan? But if you look at the back of your Magic card, right, you got the 5. Where is it? There we go. You got the 5 colors. And so there's 2 different ways that you can break these 5 up into groups of 3. Stay with me here. 2 ways to make, 2 ways to make groups of 3 of the 5 colors. You can use adjacent colors. So white, blue, and green. Those are all next to each other. So that would be what we call a shard, based on the Shards of Alara, which was another set that came out some time ago, where the world was split into 5 shards, each having 3 colors of mana. White, blue, and green is called Bant there, by the way. The other way to do it is what we call wedges. So you pick 2 colors, white and green, and then the one that's opposite of both of them, and that would be black. So you're almost drawing like a V across the back of your Magic card, and that works, no matter how you orientate it, you can do that. We've seen those done recently as well. On Ikoria, they kind of had a small wedge theme, right? We had the Trilands, the
Yes.
Triomes, and some multicolored cards, and the Apex Legends. They were all kind of built around those three colors. Weighing that together, I think that New Capenna is probably going to be a new version of the wedges. So I think it's going to be the adjacent colors, backed up with the art showing what I believe is Grixis. So that's blue, black, and red together. I think you can work your way around the pentagram there, and you can pick out what the three color combos are going to be. As for what identity each one's going to have, I don't know. They promised us unique mechanics for each of the 5 families. Usually in these things, you've got one that's like in finance, you got somebody who's in construction, you got somebody who's in, waste management or something like, it tends to be the more manual labor-esque fronts for like the crime family stuff happening behind it. So I could see kind of like a building mechanic for the construction guys. I could see an extort kind of a thing for the finance kind of guys, maybe, which extort's already a mechanic for the Orzhov on Ravnica. I know that. I'm not saying they're going to reuse extort, but something like that, where you're like nickel and diming and draining money or mana or life, or, you're picking up stuff like that somehow. I don't have all 5 of these mapped out. I'm just saying, pick any 3 colors, figure out what they kind of have in common that you could then put a mob flavor on top of, and there you go. The
Could
other
we
thing,
see, could we see flip cards here where on the front it's so and so, but when you flip it over, it's Tiny who's gonna,
oh
take care
yeah,
of business.
Tiny the kneecap breaker. We could. So they did modal face dual cards were kind of the theme for this year. We had those right in Kaldheim, Strixhaven, all throughout. Will they keep doing those? They're super popular, but I don't know how far in advance they designed these sets and whether they decided to commit to that as like an evergreen thing, or if they're going to cool it on those and be like, okay, that was our experiment for 2021, 2022. We're going to go back to just boring old fronts. And then we'll see. I genuinely like the double-sided cards. I think they offer some really great advantages. I'd like to see that continued, but I don't know if New Capenna is going to be where they show up again. One other thing that they mentioned in the stream was that this plane has special meaning to Elspeth. Elspeth is another planeswalker we have seen before. I think I mentioned her fighting Phyrexia. She's been to Theros. She's kind of been she was just in Theros Beyond Death. But in terms of what special meaning does New Capenna have, somebody's going to say, well, it's her home plane. Obviously, it's where she's from because they've never told us. But they have also told us that her home plane was overrun by Phyrexians and she was a prisoner of the Phyrexians up until her spark ignited. This place does not show any indication of having been a Phyrexian stronghold. It was created by angels, but now they no longer run it. Now the demons somehow took power. So there's already kind of a different war going on there. I don't think this one's going to be connected to the Phyrexians, not even in a small way, like I think Kamigawa will be, or Kaldheim was. I think this is going to be its own standalone thing, more like Strixhaven, where here's a whole new world. We're going to build it out. Here's the color identities. Here's some things that are happening here, and a little bit of a connective tissue to bring in Elspeth or something. But I don't foresee this one being a giant peg in the ladder of the Magic story, if that makes sense.
That's reasonable. I'm a little curious of what makes this new Capenna versus old Capenna. What if old Capenna was destroyed by the Phyrexians and this is new Capenna? I mean, we're getting into it here because there's so much we still don't know.
That's an excellent point. I just assumed it was like New Jersey or New York. It's got to have like a new in front of it because that's where crime families all live in the new, and Florida, I think. But I don't know, whatever. That's where they retire. They move down south once they've made their bank.
It's warmer there.
Right. So that's Streets of New Capenna. Probably shards. Connected to Elspeth somehow. Probably not through Phyrexians. Although you could be right. Being that it's New Capenna, maybe there was an old Capenna. Istanbul was Constantinople. These things happen.
They do.
After New Capenna, for Q3, we are heading back to Dominaria, one of my all-time favorites, with Dominaria United. It is going to be the start of celebrating Magic's 30th anniversary, and what better place to do that than to go back where it all started? It's Dominaria. In the live stream, they said that there is history in every corner of Dominaria. So I expect to see sagas come back. I expect to see, the historic mechanic maybe where they care about sagas and artifacts and cool things like that. I expect to see a ton of legendary creatures, which I love. It's one of my favorite things. And among them, there's probably going to be Karn, Teferi, and Jaya. Again, maybe not all three, but those are the three we got on our last visit to Dominaria. That's kind of home base for those guys. Karn right now is gearing up to take the fight back to the Phyrexians. He wants to liberate Mirrodin, currently New Phyrexia. And so he's trying to gather weapons and allies and all sorts of stuff. And Dominaria is a great staging ground for all of that. He's going to probably have most of the Gatewatch there to help him too. So we might see some familiar faces from that roster. But I think being that this is kind of taking the place of the core set for the year, the story here is going to be more of like getting everyone together, but we're not actually going to do anything yet kind of a thing, if that makes sense, right? Like this is just kind of the interlude between major beats of the story, because it's going to be the onboarding for new players. It's going to be kind of that core set style, just like we had with the Dungeons and Dragons set, where it's like, it's cool, but it was its own, again, self-contained kind of little world there. And I think Dominaria, they're going to spend so much effort, like, look at all these cool characters, look at all this stuff. So much is going to be crammed in there. It's going to be hard to tell like a really strong narrative that's going to push that anywhere. It's just kind of a dumping ground for cool merfolk and cool Shivan Dragon offshoots and stuff like that. Oh, there you go. That's a prediction. There's going to be some new type of Shivan Dragon. I'll say that.
Every time you go back to Dominaria, you get a new Shivan Dragon.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense. And with Dominaria United slated for Q3, that's right around double Masters. And if you're going to double a Masters, I mean, hitting Dominaria is like you said, it's your favorite. It's a lot of people's favorites. It is, going home and where it all began and telling those stories that may still be in the corners that you only hear about in the flavor text or in the background of the art, but it's Dominaria. So what is that story? And I'm hoping that we see more of those little vignettes rather than trying to get some sort of plot throughout it. The tiny stories would be much better here.
Right. In a way, it's almost like a little palate cleanser to get you ready for the big show, which is coming in Q4. That's probably the one most people are excited about. That's the Brothers' War. Now, for this one, in case you're not familiar, way back when Magic started in 1993, there wasn't a whole lot of storyline. It was just kind of a generic wizards and creatures and stuff happening. Eventually, they kind of solidified, hey, there's going to be this guy Urza. He's going to have a brother Mishra. They're going to get into some shenanigans and end up fighting against each other. That's the Brothers' War. Those are the two main characters. The repercussions from that echo throughout the multiverse and throughout time, right? Almost everything that happens even today can be traced in some way all the way back to this first story. And we really explored that with a set called Antiquities, which was one of the first expansions for Magic, because back then it was just like alpha, beta. They weren't called core sets. I don't want to get too much into how sets were structured 30 years ago because it's not super relevant now. Antiquities was like an archaeological dig where they were uncovering artifacts and remnants of this great brothers' war. But now it sounds like this set is going to take us literally back to that point in time, and we're going to experience it through the point of view of people who were alive then. We're going to see things happening as they played out. We're not digging up dusty relics. We're going to see the mech suits and the super weapons, because these guys were crazy builders, right? They were artificers. They made some incredible weapons of war. They built some really crazy stuff and just went at it. And I think that's what we're going to see here. I'll just...
I certainly hope so. I've been excited about this. It's one of the stories that I'm constantly asking you about. Everyone's asking everyone else about what happened. How did we get there? What are we going to see? And I think this is finally where a lot of those questions are going to be answered, is what exactly happened and how does the story we know relate to the real story? This is their chance to tell it like it is. And maybe it's vastly different than we expect, because, history is told by the winners. So, what
profound.
we have left is what they decided we have left. And while it was happening, like you said, mechs and war machines and all of that opens up both exciting but terrifying look at the power of old magic.
Yeah, these were pre-mending planeswalkers, and if you don't know what the mending is, that was a point in time when all of the planeswalkers suffered a sort of powering down, because before that they were basically gods and they got to do whatever they wanted, pretty much immortal, all powerful, and so this is kind of them in that era. So with that in mind, there was also a huge cast of characters supporting both of these guys, and we're
Oh
probably
yeah.
going to see some of them in a standard set for the first time. We're talking people maybe like Lord Windgrace will be in there, maybe Sarah of Sarah Angel fame might appear, Freyleys, one of the elf. So all these characters, we've seen them before, but usually in supplementary products like Commander or Commander Legends or whatever. Because they're so powerful, they couldn't exist alongside standard cards. In order to represent them in a way that felt true to the character, they had to be put in a set where it wasn't going to touch standard or modern or stuff like that. They needed room to be themselves. And now I think we're going to have to find a way to fit them into standard power level. So it might feel a little weird, but one way they can do that is kind of like if you remember the core set a couple years ago where we had Chandra and it showed her growing as a planeswalker, and there was like an uncommon, a rare, and a mythic version of her that kind of showed
Yep.
her changing over time. I could see them having a couple different versions of Urza and Mishra or their allies. We've also seen versions where it starts as a legendary creature and then flips into a planeswalker. We could do something like that for Urza here because he's never had a standard legal or any sort of planeswalker card, really. He had a silver bordered one, and then he's had a legendary creature card from, was it Modern Horizons?
One of the recent
One of
ones.
the recent
Yeah.
ones, which is busted. It's really, really good creature card. I don't think they can just put that in a standard set. They're going to have to kind of shrink it down somehow. But you could still, balance that. Just like we had Nicol Bolas started as an Elder Dragon, and then he flipped into a Planeswalker. Both sides of that card were quite good. And they could do something similar like that here. Ultimately, it's kind of probably going to feel a lot like Magic Origins, if you remember that set, which is another one of my favorites, where it kind of showed us the early days of the 5 Gatewatch characters of Jace, Chandra, Nissa, Gideon, Liliana. They all had legends that flipped into Planeswalkers, and there's some other cool supporting kind of cards in there. So that's kind of what I'm picturing Brothers War is going to be like. It's going to be like Magic Origins 2.0, but set thousands of years ago during one of these great big epic battles. We're going to see cool artifacts, war machines, the mech suits. They had some crazy, crazy stuff, and a huge roster of characters, which will play right, assuming that we're right in that historic becomes a mechanic again on Dominaria United. Great way to keep that going throughout the rest of the year and be part of standard is another big dump of legendary creatures and cards that are going to, artifacts that are going to play with that, because that's what that mechanic looks for. So I could see that just kind of dovetailing together nicely as well. That's kind of my predictions for everything. Just to recap, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, probably spirits are going to be involved in the machines somehow, and I think the Emperor is going to be either Tamio, Koth, Narset, or Tezaret. Probably Tezaret, if I had to guess. Streets of New Capenna, probably going to be... Where's my notes? Probably going to be...
none of your business. It's probably none of your business.
Probably going to be the shards there. Probably going to be, some tough crime lord stuff, but all with like fronts. And then, Dominaria United and Brothers War are going to flow right into each other. Dominaria is probably going to be more of a chill... Here's everybody setting the stage, and then Brothers War, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, you want to know how we got here? You want to know what this mana rig is? Where the weather light came from? Step into my way back machine, and we're gonna go see how these things all got built and survived blowing each other up multiple times. Maybe Gerard will be in there. Who knows? So that's it. Those are my major predictions. I know it's not quite how I did the last one, where I had like strong story beats, because these sets are really kind of all over the place, right? And it's not like before in the days of the Gatewatch when we were building up to War of the Spark or building up to the Eldrazi or something. The Phyrexians are out there. They're probably going to be involved, but it's not like there's a set called Return to New Phyrexia where like we know that that's the major theme. I think we'll kind of see their tendrils creeping into some of these sets, but it still is going to be mostly in the background because the main attraction is going to be that Brothers War, which is already such a big thing that adding Phyrexians in here as well would just really kind of pollute the whole year. So I think they're going to save Phyrexians for maybe one more year. Maybe they're coming in 2023. But 2022 is probably going to be artifacts, legendary creatures, and and yeah, and mob families with demon wings, I guess.
Ever since you mentioned Windgrace being in the Brothers' War, all I can imagine is some super pre-mending, ultra powerful cat that just knocks all the artifacts onto the table.
Yeah.
Or onto the floor from the table, right?
Knocks them off the table, right.
How did it get cracked? Oh, well, Lord Windgrace just knocked it off.
That's a great meme already in the making, a year ahead of time.
Someone will get there, and hopefully they jump on that and use the opportunity to,
I love it.
You know, giantize them and knock the artifacts off. That's the real war machine.
That's it.
Lord
Just a cat. Yep.
Just a cat. Just a cat.
All right. Well, I have bottomed out my coffee cup here. I don't know how you're doing with yours.
I'm at the sad level of coffee, which means
sad level. So we should probably wrap it up. All right. This has been a lot of fun. I love making predictions and talking about Magic stuff. We could not do this show without the support of our sponsor, Many World Tavern. So make sure you check them out using the link in the description. Save 10% on your order. Help them. Help charity. Help yourself. Help somebody in your life have some really good coffee. You know, support a business that actually cares about gaming and isn't some corporate monolith that doesn't need the help. You know, be part of the good guy team here. We love it. I can't say enough about it. But our time here is kind of wrapping up. So in the comments, what do we want to hear from you? Your predictions for where Magic is going next year. How many things did I get right? How many do you disagree with? You know, sound off, because there's a whole great big fertile ground here where all sorts of cool ideas could spring. It depends how much faith you have in the creative team at Wizards right now. But they've been doing pretty well lately. I think Innistrad is exciting. I think, well, we didn't really talk about Midnight Crimson Vow, which is still coming up, where we know there's going to be a vampire wedding.
Sure.
And it's going to involve Olivia, but we don't know who she's getting married to. And it seems kind of split. Is it going to be Soren? Is it going to be Edgar Markov? Is it going to be somebody else? I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how that one plays out. Yeah. So, you know, if you have thoughts on that too, you know, I'm not going to make any predictions for that because it's too close and I'll be wrong immediately. And then this video gets kind of not fun anymore for me. So I'm just going to leave that one up in the air. What's going to happen in the Markov or in the Voldaren wedding? I guess we're going to call it the Voldaren wedding because that's the only one we know for sure. Beyond that, though, what happens in Neon Dynasty? Is that little raccoon going to be somebody super important? You know, is everybody going to have a little familiar digital kind of a sidekick Tamagotchi on their shoulder? Well, I don't know. What happens in New Kapena? What kind of mechanics represents a mob family? You know, Dominaria United. What legendary creatures haven't we seen that need to come back? You know, who's going to replace Belzenlock, one of my favorite demons of all time? We need a new awesome demon there. He was great. He was a great bad guy. You know, is Yargle still kicking around? Are we going to get a new, is he going to be like a 10-4 now instead of a 9-3? Maybe he grew up. Maybe he's I think he's dead. I think he died.
We get Fibblethip coming back at some point.
Fibblethip could be.
Where is he?
I think he's stuck. He's stuck on Ravnica.
Lost.
He's a planeswalker. He can't get. Well, he is always lost. Oy. And then Brothers War. What's going to happen there? How many? Let me put it this way: how many Urzas are we going to get? 1, 2, 3, 0? Is there going to be? Is he only going to be mentioned in other cards? Are we not going to even get an Urza? We have to get an Urza.
Does Teferi show up in every set next year?
Ooh,
because he can.
Because he can. He can travel through time and everything. That'd be cool.
No, please.
Don't. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories that you'll only find
on Magic Arcanum.
On Magic Arcanum. You said it. All right. We'll see you.